So today we have a long update. So let's start. I'm gonna mention to you four bullet points of what happened today, the most important things that happened today, and then I'll summarize all the things that happened that are also important. So the first one is that the water has completely disappeared from the streets of Nova Kakhovka. If you remember, this is the area that was flooded after the dam was destroyed. By the way, we did show you a video in which there was another dam upstream controlled by the Ukrainians that kept the gates open, and it was helping to flood the area even more. Well, as you can see on this video here, this dam is now closed and is basically drying up the area, making it easier to cross to the other side. So let's see who benefits from this. So Ukrainian forces unsuccessfully tried to attack the Black Sea Fleet. They tried to attack a ship with the name Priazovia. I hope I pronounce it properly. So they're trying to attack it with 6 drones, so 6 unmanned boats, and this is similar to what they tried to do before anyways. I'll go deeper into detail later on. Then 700,000 Ukrainians has lost access to drinking water due to the destruction of the Kakhovka hydroelectric power station, and this was a statement from the United Nations. And the last point is that the head of the IAEA, Mr. Grossi, he will visit Kiev and the Zaporozhye nuclear plant next week because a fragment from an American shell was found in the territory of the power plant recently. So I'm not sure if the visit is due to this, but the Russians are showing this as an evidence to prove that the Ukrainians were the ones attacking the power plant. So now we're going to talk about the developments in the front. To be honest, the front is really steady based on what I could find online. However, there is a section in the front where the Ukrainians managed to break through. Okay, so this was in Neskuchno and Blagodatno. Okay, this is the location, this picture here. It is confirmed that these two places, they're under Ukrainian control. So hopefully the Ukrainians will continue advancing and they will try to take these positions. Okay, so you can see this picture here. This comes from an article from the Telegraph, which basically say that Russia has built the most powerful line of defense in the world. Okay, and as you can see here, this defense has different levels of fortification. Okay, according to the Telegram, what they did, they took new satellite images which really show the complex network of Russian defenses that has been built in the last 6 months. So the British intelligence, they're also saying that the Russians did build these defenses, then they put many minefields before these defenses. They also set up anti-tank trenches and ordinary trenches, so the length of which is in some directions can exceed 30 kilometers of trenches. So, as I said before, the British intelligence has described Russia's efforts to strengthen its position as one of the largest military defense systems they have ever seen. So, we need to understand that the Ukrainians, even though they have breached or they have broke through to the first line of defense or the provisional first line of defense of the Russians, they have to break through all this. As you can see, these are kilometers of defense. So it's not going to be easy to go through these ones. And as I heard and I read, these defenses you can see here, these different lines of defense, they heavily fortify, and they did it on purpose because the Russians knew that the Ukrainians will attack in that front. So this front is more fortified than any other. So let's see how the Ukrainians do. Apparently, the Ukrainians are attacking at night, and they're sending wave after wave of attacks. Okay, they're taking the wounded and they're sending the reserves, and it's non-stop basically. And what this is doing is is basically depleting the Russian ammunition in some places, and in some places the Russians were forced to step back to the previous line of defense. Okay, so it should be noted that at the beginning of the war, Kiev did not have any fortified areas in the south. That would be very difficult to what the Russians were doing. This was also said by the UK intelligence services. So the Ukrainian army, they carry an attack in the Azov ship of the Black Sea Fleet with 6 sea drones, as I was telling to you before. The US Air Force Global Hawk drone operated in the air before this attack. So the Russians knew that something was about to happen, and actually this happened. As you can see on this footage here, this drone is destroyed from far distance. But if you want to see the full video, just head to our Telegram channel. You'll be able to see it there. Okay, so this ship, it was performing the task of monitoring the situation and ensuring security along the routes of the Turkish Stream and Blue Stream gas pipelines in the southeastern part of the Black Sea. Okay, so during the repulse of the attacks, all the drone boats were destroyed by fire from the standard weapons of the Russian ship, which is the ship I just mentioned before. So again, the last information I want to share with you, which is really important, there was a group of countries. This was Indonesia, Brazil, and different African countries that they did draft a peace plan for Ukraine and Russia, and again, Ukraine refused to negotiate. So Mikhail Podolyak, which is the advisor to the head of the Ukrainian president office, he rejected the peace initiative from other countries. So he did say this, that any negotiation process with the current Russian regime is impossible. There are no foundations in the Indonesian, Brazilian, or African proposals for this at all. This is basically what he said. So the last thing I want to share with you is you can see here these vehicles. These are special vehicles that the Russians are using to mine certain territories. So what's happening? The Ukrainians are just walking over minefields basically, and they take these positions, and then the Russians retake the position later on the day, and then they move back to the line of defense and they mine these positions again. So the terrain is constantly mined using these vehicles that mine from the distance. Okay, so I think these are the most important headlines for today. Obviously, the most important one is the Ukrainians managed to break through the provisional first line of defense that the Russians have set up, but unfortunately they have all these lines of defense to go through, which seems to me like an impossible task. But let's see what happened anyways, and I'll continue informing you.